up in your bones, and you won't have no peace until you answer that call. And I can speak from experience because I ran a long time, you know, until I said yes, God. Right. So we have to realize that, you know, God gives everybody a gift, and God calls you, but you got to wait through your season. Right. You got to be mentored. Right. You have to go through the process. That's right.
There was a relationship between Elisha and Elijah.
Yes.
And so Elisha knew that there was coming a time when Elijah was going to be taken off the scene.
Right.
And he wanted that double portion mantle from his life. He said, if you see when I'm relieved here, if you see when the Lord takes me from here, then you'll receive. So in other words, he had to enter into a mentee-mentor relationship with him over that period of time to receive that anointing and that calling that God had on his life.
And we're going to come back to you because I know you have a wonderful event coming up. So we're going to come back to you so you can talk to us about that wonderful event. Sure. But at this time, we're going to hear about our other lady, Amanda, and what it is she do. And I remember seeing her from years ago, and I hadn't seen her in years. Right. So now we're going to hear a little bit about what she does.
Okay, Amanda Buford is the CEO and founder of Bridge to Beauty, a nonprofit organization that mentors girls from the age of 6 to 16. And she recently started a mentoring program for boys ages 6 to 16 called Highway to Handsome. Amanda was raised in Pleasantville and attended Pleasantville School District. She's participated and coached cheer in Pleasantville for 8 years. She's currently working on an infection control clinical education, working as an infection control clinical educational nurse. It has always been a passion of hers to give back to the youth and be a voice from the unheard. These programs are designed to allow youth a safe space where they know anything is possible, and her goal for them is to know that they are limitless. So
that's awesome. Welcome. A young woman doing that.
Yes. The programs I started Bridge to Beauty because I was actually raised in Pleasantville. I was always in the at-risk area, so I had the best of both worlds of my family. I had the Christian side of my family who we went to church every Sunday, and we went to YPD, and I was on choir. And I had the other side of my family who was, you know, more the street savvy side of my family. And a lot of the times people in that position get judged because you're misunderstood. You don't know where you quite fit in. So I was always one of those girls. I didn't know where I quite fit in. I always knew I had a foundation though. So if I didn't understand something, I knew I had a place to go back to figure it out. And there are some girls or some boys even that don't know that there's a foundation. So although these are nonprofit organizations that are based in social skills, I also bring God into it for those who are comfortable. Because you know it's different when you're dealing with people's children. So you have to be careful with that. I was in a organization when I was younger. It was a Bible study group. I would go every Thursday, and my grandmother actually would make me go. And I didn't want to go. I'll be honest, I never ever wanted to go. And every week she would say, you have to go, you have to go. And the Bible instructor, her name was Mrs. Francis, she passed. Reverend Francis' wife, I don't know if you know, from St. Paul. She took a liking to me, and she always would pull me off to the side. And every time I didn't want to come, she would give me a pep talk. And the two of them would say to me all the time, beauty on the inside shows on the outside. I used to walk around with my face scrunched up all the time. And they would say that to me, and I couldn't figure out what it was about me. Why did they want to talk to me so much? Why did they want me here? Why did I need to know the different Bible stories? Why did I have to go through some of the things? I always had so many questions. I couldn't figure out why I was me. I experienced good things, bad things, self-inflicted, some not inflicted, some self-inflicted. But I never had an answer for it. And it wasn't until like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I started to dream. I'm like, I need to be doing something because there's a reason I've gone through all these things. There's a reason why I didn't feel like I fit in with everybody. I always had friends, I always had family, I always had people I could go to, don't get me wrong, but I always felt like I was alone. I spent so much time in solitude, and I didn't know why. So now, I'm starting to figure it out. Like during COVID actually, because even though I'm a nurse and I stayed employed the entire time, thank God, I did spend a lot of time alone because there wasn't anything else to do. Besides being home with the kids, and I do have 3 children, being home with them, doing homework with them. Outside of those things, there was nothing else to do but educate myself. So during the time of COVID, when I was educating myself on just even myself, my self-esteem, who I was, I I started to go back to some of the incidents, some of the stories that I remember growing up. Like, oh, this relates to something I went through 20 years ago. Well, now it makes sense. So all for me to realize those lessons were for me to teach somebody else. And I didn't realize how many young women, young girls, even their parents, like I have conversations with their parents, how many people relate.
And I was just getting ready to say that the same thing that you went through, I'm sure every one of us can tell you that we've all had those moments, those lonely moments of what should I do, what should I be doing, why am I here, why did this happen to me? You know, I know there's a God, but why is this happening to me?
Right.
I didn't do nothing to make this happen to me. You know, so, and we all have been through it. And when you realize that, wow, I'm not the only one.
Right.
I'm not out there by myself. Other people have went through these same things.
You can't truly step into your calling until you go through something.
Yes. And that's the only reason only way you're going to be able to speak to someone else.
Right.
You know, I tell people all the time, you'll never know God, who He is, until you walk through something.
Right.
And that's when you will learn who you are. And God allows those things to happen to build you, you know what I mean, and to get you ready to step into whatever your calling is.
Right.
Because, you know, you can't tell somebody God can if He's never done anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And a lot of times when we're talking to women, we tell, especially when we have our conferences and stuff, we let them know that you look at me and you see, maybe you might see the beauty, or you might even see fame, or you might even see fortune. I pray to God, you know, and I thank Him that that's what you see. But you never know the person inside that's been crying, you know, every day, that has pains that's just unbearable, that have went through things. And then sometimes I remember when I first started Sister Strengthening Sisters, women would say, but you've never been raped. I've been raped. You've never been beat up. I've been beat up until I was in the hospital. You've never tried to kill yourself. I almost jumped out of a window. I took an overdose of pills because I couldn't understand why I was getting beat up for no reason at all. You know, I didn't even do nothing. I wasn't even a person that was going out in the streets at that time. You know, for me, these things to happen to me, you know, you don't understand this. This never happened to you. Yes, tell me about it. And you name it. And I'm going to tell you, in some form or fashion, that was me too. Right. That was me before you see me now. Right. I wasn't always Lady D. You know, I was Debbie. I was Deborah. No, Deborah came later because I didn't even like the name Deborah until I realized who she was in the Bible. Right. And I was like, oh, she was somebody great. Okay, yeah, you can call me Deborah now. You know, because you know, my mom named me Deborah, and I was like, ew, why she named me that horrible, ugly name? And then in every classroom that I was in, there was like 10 Debbies. You know, so when the teacher would say, Debbie, which one? You know, it was always a lot of them. So, you know, you have to find something that you can identify with. Right. And so when I'm in those different conferences and women are saying, you never went through this, you never went through that. Yes, I went through the abuse. Yes, I went through the men abuse. Yes, I went to some marriages. Yes, I went through some of those too. You know, yes, I went through some divorces. Yes, I just said, God, I'm going to do it until I get it right. I'm going to do it until I get it right. And whenever it gets right, that's when it'll be. But yes, I've been through those things, so I can talk to them on every level. You never did drugs. How you know I never did drugs? Right. Because I don't look like I did drugs. Oh yeah, I did some of that too. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, me, yes. You know, so when you're a person that, you know, can relate to those people that's out there, you know, that's crying. Because I remember even with my book, The Jailhouse Pride, it took me a long time to write it, like 10, 15 years maybe. But then it took me even longer to, you know, to be able to read the poem and get through it without crying. Because I was saying to myself, I can't even believe I went through this kind of stuff. I can't even believe and then when I got a little smarter, I said, I can't even believe I allowed somebody to do these things to me. Nobody can take the responsibility but me, because I allowed for a lot of things that happened to me to happen. You know, because I could have stopped those things, you know, or those things could have been avoided. But since they happened, it happened for a reason. And now I realize, because I tell everybody all the time, they used to say, well, the stuff that you go through is not for you, it's for somebody else. And I used to say, well, who am I doing this for? What you mean it's for somebody else? You know, but then I realized later, it is for somebody else, because somebody's going to understand that if you went through it and you made it out and you became something, then they can do the same thing. You know, it's not easy to be transparent and talk about the things that you've been through, the things that you've suffered, you know, because then after you tell everybody, oh, guess what? I saw her. She was on the internet and she was telling everybody all her business. So, yes, I'm very transparent like that, because guess what? I'm going to help somebody else that's probably sitting there watching and listening to say, oh, wow, maybe, you know, I understand, since she made it out of that. If she made it out of getting beat up, or she made it out of this, maybe I can do the same thing. I can get away from this. Because a lot of times, especially us as women, we don't think that there's a way out. You know, we're so afraid of what's going to happen to us if we try to get out, but there's always a way out. And once you find who God is and allow him to come into your life, he's going to make that way for you to get out. He didn't say he was going to stop anything. The Bible never says that God was going to stop anything. But he did say that he will never leave you nor forsake you, and he will be there with you through each and everything that you ever have to go through.
And see, one thing about God, and Dr. Nicole Lau, Dr. Nicole, you know what I'm talking about, she has a saying that I like. She was like, once you put it out there, now what y'all gonna talk about?
Right.
Because now I done said it.
Right.
So what? But so what you'll do is you'll see God's glory. And so people will say, well, you did this, this, and this. Yeah, I did that, you know, that and that. But look where God brought me from.
Exactly.
You know, that's my comeback.
It's not what I did, it's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, so a lot of times people see the glory, but do you know the story?
Right.
You know, and so people will do that. They'll try to throw your past up. You know what I mean? But once God heals it and he tells you the reason for it, and you'll be like, yeah, I did that. Everybody know I did that.
Yeah.
But look where God brought me from.
Right.
Now what?
Right. Right.
So, but you know, it's good, like she said, to see a young woman doing this, because you know that generation will be able to relate to you more than they would, you know, relate to us.
Right.
You know, they're gonna probably be more open with you because you know you're in that, you know, that generation.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it makes it easier because I can, and I have my oldest child is 17. Like I was married. I didn't really get too much information about myself. My oldest daughter is 17 and I was married. I was married for 7 years. I got married when I was in my 20s and I had my children. And, you know, I learned a lot from being married at that age. But I also know I needed to get to know myself before I entered something like that with someone else.
Right.
We are great co-parents and we have amazing children together. But it also made me more aware of things that I need to learn about myself before I enter any type of relationship, a friendship, even being a mother even. It taught me how to be a better mother. Just to mother myself, not just mother my kids, mother myself before I go to do something with anyone else. So I use even that experience with my girls. A lot of the times people will prejudge a person based on the exterior, right? So when I walk into a room, most of the time people don't know anything about me, but it's very easy to judge. Oh, she's a young girl, she doesn't know. Or she's this, and I remember being a child even, and being very aware. I learned many things from church, many things. The one thing I learned that was a constant was God was always with me there. That's number one. But I also learned some good things and some bad things. I've met many different types of people in church. The one thing that was constant in church was judgment.
Right.
A place that is supposed to be very free of judgment. I learned judgment the most from there.
That's right.
And that was one of the places I would go. I always knew how to go to the altar to pray, but whenever I was in congregation with people, I was closed. I was quiet. I didn't want to talk to anyone. People would try to pray over me. I wouldn't feel moved at all. Not because I didn't want to feel moved, but because people don't give children enough credit.
Right.
So I understand.
True.
Mm-hmm.
And we understand. I say we because I still identify with that part of myself, and I think that also helps me with my program because I still identify with how I felt it. I was very aware, and I saw it, and nobody listens. And you become closed, and that's when you get those angry kids, the kids that don't want to rebel, don't respect you, because you didn't let me speak.
Wow.
You didn't let me be myself. You didn't think that my opinion mattered.
Right.
You thought it was okay for you to be deceitful in front of me and come to church and to pray, and it was okay. So when you grow up and you see those things and you recognize very early on that God is present, but there are some other things that you're going to have to be able to navigate yourself through.
Right.
I'm glad that I was in the number of people who he decided to choose to navigate me through it so I can help somebody else. Excuse me. But yeah, people definitely will judge and say, write me off until I start to speak to them.
Right.
And I deal with it daily in my career even. I'll be 40 in a few years. I'm not as young as people think I am. Thank
Now,
God.
I misjudged you there.
Yeah,
I was going to
say.
36.
If I may, I was going to tell you, you do not bear the scars of the things that
Thank you.
you've been through.
Thank you.
You look good
Thank
for
you.
40.
Almost.
You really, well,
Thank you.
I mean, you'll
Yeah.
be 40.
Yeah.
So you look good.
Thank you.
God's hand was all on you.
Yes.
And he carried you.
Yes, he did.
When you could not carry yourself.
Yes.
And you are a living testimony
Yes.
for women and for saints.
Yes.
It's not just women,
Right.
it's saints.
Saints.
For the saints, for the body of the saints. You look good.
Thank you. Thank you so
I
much.
would have never thought that you was almost 40.
No,
Thank you.
no, I didn't get
I was
that.
sitting here
Thank
looking
you.
at you, I'm like, okay.
I was saying 25.
Thank you.
Only because I didn't know exactly, but I knew it was somewhere around.
Sure.
So with your program now, like what do you do to get your program out there? How do you?
I go to different community events. I am at Bayview Avenue School in Pleasantville. I'm there every Wednesday and every Thursday. I do a lot of communications on Facebook, and I do some programs, weekend activities. Like I took them fishing recently, so I've promoted with the parents. I'll text them. I take them to church for the ones that want to go. We're going to St. Paul this weekend, this upcoming Sunday, and then the following Sunday we're going to visit. I'll pick somewhere else we'll visit. So it's really word of mouth. And then the organization I coach cheer for. Coach cheer for Pleasantville Jokers for 8 years. So
Oh, wow.
I do still go out there with them. So some of the families and the children still see me there too.
And do you go to churches and things like that there and just talk to their youth groups? And things like
Not
that?
yet. I started my program in April 22nd of this year.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So I'm barely,
Congratulations.
but we've been doing really, really well. We've had a lot of different events. I did a Peyton Sip event with them, or Shirley Temple and Sip event, because you don't want to say Peyton Sip when they're kids. So I did like a
Right.
Shirley Temple with the girls.
Where was you at, girl? In the pink suit.
You don't want to say that.
Oh, yeah,
We do different things. Like it's based in self-esteem. Like I teach them positive affirmations. Really just getting back to the like rites of passage. Like really getting back down to the foundation. It's not anything social, nothing competitive. Just working on yourself, knowing who you are, learning different skills. Like they'll learn how to sew. We're starting a choir. Just things to build good friendships and outlets, and not so much of a competition, because with the social media and everything, the standard of beauty has changed. These kids have so much pressure on them, and I'm grateful that I didn't have that. I remember what it was like to be a kid and go outside and just do regular things.
I loved my era.
I did too.
Yeah, so now everything's on the computer, and even they spent a year and a half of school on the computer.
Yeah.
So they're fighting against that, and then there's the things in school. They lost the ability to be social
Yes.
during COVID, so now they don't even know how to speak to one another.
Right.
I've never seen so many children with so many bad manners. Not even respect for adults even. I mean, when I was growing up, I'm not innocent. I've done so many things. I make mistakes on the regular. I'm asking
We all
God for
have.
forgiveness every day.
And
I
we're
do
all
something
making
like that.
them.
Yes.
So, but I use that, and I try to get people to understand you can make the mistakes, but just try not to do it again. Don't make it repetitive.
Right.
But back to with the social skills with the kids, I learned that they just had no respect. When we were younger, we would say little cuss words and stuff
Right.
in the corner with our friends or whatever.
You
But
definitely
then
don't
it
say
was
in front of adults.
right. If an adult was walking up, you knew not to say it.
Mhm.
You knew how to. There was a certain level of respect. That's gone.
Right.
It's very
Right.
different. And because I'm a mom and I'm raising children,
Mhm.
I've raised my kids the way my grandparents raised me.
Right.
So I'm grateful that I've had that foundation. So I don't believe in getting on you every single time, but you know that there's some regulations, there's some rules. You can't do what you want. You can express yourself
Right.
within reason, but you are still a child.
That's right.
I'm not your friend, but you can express yourself to me.
Mhm.
We can become friends later.
Mhm.
But it's just everybody's friends with the kids now.
Yeah, I taught high school for a few years, and just what the young people accept, like the young women, the guys would call them, names, and I was like, you don't answer to that, hon. I said, that's why they don't respect you. When I was in school, if someone called you that, you got into a fight.
Right.
And what are you
Right.
calling it? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they calling that, and it's like a term of endearment.
Yeah.
So teaching them to, to have the respect for themselves, like we were taught, and how to be young ladies.
Right.
I had an incident with one of the young ladies, they were taking pictures in the class. She was last day of school, and she opened her legs and she called the young man over, hey, Tim, come over here. I said, girl, I will beat you to death in here if you don't close your legs. And I told him, you better go back on the other side of that room. I was like, how disrespectful can you be? And I said, don't you see me here, sitting here?
Right.
I said, you know what I mean? And that's just sad to, what it has come from the young people. But then you look at, who do they have as their mentors?
Mhm. And who are they looking up to?
That's what I mean.
You
Look
know.
at who they're looking
Who's
at.
around? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, as their mentors. That's the problem.
That's
Nothing
by
against
design.
Carly B, but that's their mentors today. The people like that, I mean, I give kudos out to her, because she did work in a strip club, but now like she said, she's making music. But that's who they look up to.
That's
the
their
people.
mentors.
Not people like us or people that has really went through some stuff, and we're still going through. But to people that they see on the TV, that's stars and rappers, and not just rappers, because there's some positive rappers. I grew up on rap. I love rap. I still play rap now today. But it needs to be people that they can look up to that have made a difference in society today. Just because you was in a strip club doesn't mean that you're making a difference in life today. It's when you go back in your community and you pull some other people up and you say, ladies, you don't have to do that no more because there's something else out there for you. Like she's doing with the young girls, and we definitely need that with the young women today,
Yeah,
and
you can
especially in
keep
our area, men.
Yeah, you can keep your clothes on
Yes,
and still be somebody.
that's right. That's right. Still be respected.
You can keep your clothes on and still be somebody. Yeah, we have young men. You can pull your pants up and still be somebody, and still have swag, like they said. You can have swag and still pull your pants up. So those are the things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I try to teach them, etiquette and proper things. I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to be themselves. So when they come to me, I'm not like, fix this, do this, do this.
Right.
It's more of a, I'm watching you. I'm getting to know why you're doing this. A lot of times with the youth is why you're doing it.
Right.
Sometimes adults are, you're following this, you're doing this.
They're
you're doing
followers.
this. No,
And
ask me
some-
why.
Right.
Ask me
Right.
why I'm doing it. What is going on with me and why do I feel the way I feel? Just because, a parent can teach a child what they want to teach them in the house. Like, I know plenty of people who have parents who were strict, who didn't allow them to do anything.
And they were
allowed
the
them to
worst
watch-
kids.
Right.
And
So
they
you can
say that
only
about
get influences
church
in your house.
kids,
PKs.
pastor PKs.
Right.
Their
Right.
children. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of the ones that I knew, and even today, they were the worst ones of all. They did things that I wouldn't even do and wouldn't even do today.
But
And,
in my case, because I grew up in a very strict household, it brought me closer to God, because that's the only thing I was allowed to do. If it was connected to the church, I don't care what it was, I was allowed to do it.
Right.
So if the church was going on a trip, the church was having a picnic, choir, and so you know, that was my refuge, the church. So what better refuge to have than the church?
Right.
Because everything else was no, 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 no.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Now my kids was downstairs, was like, Mom, you took us to church all the time, and now I hate church. You know, I hate going to church, and especially because, Mom, you be saying that they your friends and stuff, and they be talking about you behind your back and all of this, and they see the stuff that they were doing. So being that they see the stuff or heard us talk about the stuff, they're like, no.
But see, like she
That's
said,
what I learned from church, and I've also
and like she
never
said
support
that,
anybody's children.
right?
A lot of people mistake the fact that you think that you can just speak on people's children in church, and I find it a lot of adults do. She's too grown. She's too this. She's that, and that child that you just, and I was one of them. And that child that you think is too grown or too mature winds up being this great person, while the child that you sheltered, that you thought was going to be great, is maybe not so much. Not because they didn't want to be, because of the power of your tongue.
That's
You
right.
know, if I could just also say something to encourage you, your name again? Amanda. Because, you know, and you're almost 40. I have a son that is 40, he just turned 43. And so while I'm listening to you, it's like I'm hearing him for something like the first time. A lot of stuff he used to say to me, I was like, I wasn't hearing it. You know, y'all generation don't know what y'all talking about. You think you know, and all that. But see, I'm looking at you as a product of someone from that generation, and look how God is using you now.
Yes.
Because now you're able, because that's what like him and his sister, that was some of the, I have 4 children, but I was hardest on the first 2. The other 2 came along, it was like, I was tired. I was tired, so they got to do everything. That was one of their complaints, that we pump too much church at them. And so me and my wife today, we talk a lot about that, how, you know, if I had a chance, if we had some chances to do things over, we would have been more outgoing with them. We would have been more doing of other things, you know, that there is like outside again of the walls of the church, you know, there's things going on. And so they were turned off for a while, you know, like they just beginning to come around, you know, and even then I have to have my conversations like the old scripture said, you know, it's full of grace and seasoned with salt, you know, because you say one thing, it's like, see, that's what I'm talking about, Dad. You know, so it's like I'm trying to be more of a listener now, and then always, you know, just talking and everything. But as I'm listening to you, it's like you was able to have that part of balance of both worlds. You know, now you're back in the Lord, you're doing things in the Lord, you know what the youth need. You're sensitive to that. And I think that's good. You're to be commended on that.
Yes,
you are.
yes,
See,
yes.
You know, the Bible says you lay that foundation. You know, and at some point they might regret it, but at some point that foundation is what's going to hold them, and they're going to come back, because you laid the foundation for them.
Oh yeah, I find myself quoting my grandmother all the time.
I think it's a wonderful thing that you are doing, and I would like for you to give us 30 seconds and tell us if there was a young lady watching, how she could get in touch with you so she could be mentored, or a young man.
All right. Well, you can reach me on my Facebook page. It's called Bridge to Beauty 36 at Facebook, and I also have my email, awebster0@icloud.com. I'm at Bayview Avenue School every Wednesday and every Thursday from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And my phone number is 609-385-3986. And that's the best way to reach me. If you ever want to, if you're inquiring about my program, if you have a young lady that wants to sign up, those are all the ways to reach me.
Amen. And you, Apostle, have a wonderful event coming up this week. I was blessed to be a part of it last year, and I enjoyed myself. Yes, I am. We are all look at our administrator. She's too excited right now.
Is it okay to look over towards the camera? She's such snapping the whip around here.
I know, right?
So yes, this Sunday will be our 4th annual gala. We'll be celebrating 7 years of this particular ministry that we do, All Saints Evangelistic Movement, and this will be our 4th gala. Because what we wanted to do was something, because we go throughout the summer holding conferences, tent revivals, and things like that, and then the gala is a time to just kind of come together and celebrate all that God has done throughout the year. And again, you know, like you had alluded to earlier, is this not a gala where we're just preaching and got different preachers and testimonies and all. But we open up the dance floor.
Yes, yes.
We open up the dance floor, and we don't play nothing, rough, but just some oldies but goodies, stuff like that there. Have good, I've been persecuted a little bit for doing that, but I haven't felt.
And it's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. And that's I love our pastors, Pastor Diana and Pastor Lyles, because they like to have fun. They have a good time. We have a Christmas party every year, or whatever kind of event that we have, and when we do have it, and they're playing the music, they come out, they dance, they have a good time. And there's nothing in the Bible that says you cannot have a good time.
Right. And I like to remind folks, not so you can take any scripture and try just for anything, but I do like to remind people sometimes. I say, look at Jesus. I said, number one about the children. Jesus had a good sense of humor, and he was real down to earth because the children like hanging around.
That's right.
The disciples were saying, "Oh, get them kids out of here." He said, "No, forbid not the little children."
That's right. That's right.
So he knew how to identify and connect with the young as well. And then here he was at the party.
Right.
He was at a
That's
party.
right.
You know what I mean? And so it wasn't like he was over there. Oh, my God, we're hanging around all these sinners. No,
He said, what dog? You don't have no wine?
Yeah, he was there to be a light in a dark place.
Right.
I tell Christians sometimes, you got too many Christian friends. You got to have some unbeliever friends. The Bible said Jesus was a friend of sinners.
Yes, yes.
So anyhow, this Sunday, 7 o'clock, we're going to be at the Paris Cater. And I'd like to invite you as our guest.
I was going to do
I
You knew that I was going there. But that's cool. Please come out and be our guest.
And when we say as our
Enjoy
guest, we're
yourself.
saying that there's a complimentary seat for you.
Yes.
Okay?
Enjoy
And to
yourself.
recognize your program and what you're doing,
Thank
to
you.
show that we appreciate, what you're doing. Because that's a ministry.
Yes, yes it is. Yes it is.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
and we
it is.
can give you
Yes.
information about that. But again, this Sunday, Paris Cater, 7 o'clock. Come on, dress up, look your best. Let's have a good time. Amen?
Yes,
Amen?
yes, yes, yes.
Amen.
So, and we're going to enjoy ourselves and have a
Yes.
good time. So I want to thank you guys so very much
Amen.
for taking out of your busy schedules. Because
Our
I know
pleasure. This was
I know
awesome.
you would
Wait,
usually
we're
be on
sitting
church
right here
without walls
half an hour
today.
before time.
I know, they were here ahead of us. So we want to thank you for coming, and also Amanda, thank you so much for sharing that information. As a young woman, we will honor you for the things that you do.
Amen.
Don't think that what you're doing is in vain, because you will see it coming.
That's right.
And that's all I can tell you about that part.
Amen.
But I want to thank everyone who is watching on today. Thank you so very much. You have been tuned to Sister Strengthening Sisters Talk Show. I'm your host, Lady D, along with my co-host, Dr. Lois. And we want you to join us every other Thursday, because we have something great for you. Make sure you join us. Have a great week and be blessed.
Be blessed.
Bye.